state. And this is why the cause of self-determination in South Yemen is somewhat different to many other causes and situations elsewhere. Until 1990, South Yemen was a fully sovereign state, and in 1990 the decision was taken that South Yemen and North Yemen become unified. It was a result of many years of nationalist motivated stance. In the Arab world there was a lot of nationalism going on, and the issue of unity was a sought after aim. Unfortunately, after the unity took place, it was clear that it wasn't likely to last, and it was likely to fail for a number of reasons which I don't intend to go into much detail today. But the reality is that in 1994, unity, as it were, in terms of the southern people, they would say ended in 1994 when the North waged a war against the South, after Southerners had protested against the way that the unity was being managed by the North. And it was from then in 1994 that the southern people began to rise and began to express their discontent with the unity. And gradually the situation developed, the movement for self-determination developed more and more until 2007, when the Southern Peaceful Movement was established, in order really to carry the aspirations and desires of the Southern people to move forward with the attempts towards self-determination and eventually the re-establishment of the Southern state. Many things happened since then, and I will jump slightly to the recent events when, as some of you may be aware of the situation in Yemen being a very complicated one at the moment, but the southern issue is a very, very much a live issue within that complexity that is Yemen at the moment. The position at the moment is that the South, as it was before 1990, is largely independent in the sense that it is governed by a multitude of factions. The Yemeni government, which is waging a war in the north, would claim to have some sort of rule over the South Yemen, but the reality is very different, to the extent that the legitimate government has no real presence on the ground. And in recent months, the Southern Transitional Council became to be in that position and filled the vacuum in terms of at least being a body that the Southern people believe in, the Southern people have or believe will continue with their struggle towards self-determination and ultimately the re-establishment of the Southern state. Now, I said earlier in the introduction that self-determination can sometimes be an abstract issue and does not really go into the heart of the issue, which is really why self-determination is being sought. And we have a very good case here, where the southern people feel that the only way forward and for them to really re-establish some dignity, a way of life, is for them to be independent again, because they feel that the legitimate government is no longer able to fulfill their aspirations or provide them with the basics of human rights. The reality is, as we speak in Aden, that there is collective punishment. Often we associate human rights violations by torture or killings, and sometimes we ignore sometimes the collective punishment, where, for example, in Aden, which is the capital city of the south, people to the day, which is nearly 4 years after the legitimate government became in power, continue to live without electricity in a city where the temperatures can rise up to 40 degrees in the summer. So clearly serious suffering does take place because of the failure of the government to actually provide the basic necessities for the people. Furthermore, a lot of people are currently the civil service, the military, and those whom the government should be responsible for paying their wages are currently not receiving their wages, which is causing families a great deal of distress, a great deal of suffering. That this cannot be anything but abuses of human rights. If the government cannot take responsibility for providing the basic needs for the people in those in places where it is supposedly in control, then there are serious question marks about whether the government itself is in violations of human rights. So why are Southerners continuing to aspire towards self-determination and in recent months support the Southern Transitional Council as being the force or the mechanism towards eventually securing self-determination? They feel that the Southern Transitional Council is a body that represents the cause, those people or those associated in the leadership, those associated with the STC, the Southern Transitional Council, who are in leadership positions, were one day activists, they were one day fighters against the oppressors, and they continue to carry the cause forward. Where we go from here, it takes a great deal of responsibility and courage from all parties concerned to really look at the situation in South-Yemen differently than how it's been viewed in the past. It will serve to benefit the North and the South if Southern self-determination was to be realised, because the re-establishment of two states would allow for mutual benefits between the two states, hopefully to overcome the barriers and the fractions that's taken place over the last 20 years. There is a great deal of hatred, a great deal of discontent between northern and southern people, which should not be the case. A lot of it is politics, but unfortunately it's made its way to the people in the south and in the north. So what Southerners really want is to end the war, to start to talk about the real political solution, and Southerners feel that we are closer than ever before in terms of securing self-determination. But that can only take place if there is a political will from all the parties involved in the current conflict in Yemen. And also the international community must look at the situation in Yemen completely differently than it has done in the past. There are various players in the south. Certainly the Southern Transitional Council cannot be ignored in terms of how they will carry the south to the next period of talks, and they have to be the body that the international community deal with as a representative of the southern people. Closely, we are getting to the situation where the southern people feel they are far more closer than ever before to realising what they've always struggled for, and I think it will be an approach, a responsible approach by all concerned, and in particular the international community, to look at the situation in Yemen differently and to accept that this is not simply a case of a war that should continue indefinitely. There has to be an end to this war, and the sooner they start to talk to all the key players on the ground, the better. So in short and in summary to what I wish to say today, we are closer to hopefully realising the aim of self-determination in South Yemen, which has been a struggle for over 20 years. However, it is still a complex situation in South Yemen, and we must ensure that all the people are represented and must not allow the elite to continue to dictate the pace of the change in Yemen. And in the south, we believe that the Southern Transitional Council will probably, or the southern people believe that Southern Transitional Council is the body that will represent the cause from now on. I'll be happy to take any more questions, but that's the extent of what I wish to say.